All right, hello and welcome to this lesson where we're going to design our initial mock-up for our first activity. And so basically all it's going to consist of is, when a user taps on the launcher icon to launch the app, it's just simply going to show a screen with the symbol that we designed, kind of pretty large, and then beneath it with a button that says add a drop, as in a new bucket drop. And so it will show this screen only if they have no current drops added. All right, so the first time a user launches the app, it will always show this screen, or if they have no current drops. So before we begin, it's important that you have a decent, maybe even just a very basic understanding of how to design assets and mock-ups of apps for Android specifically. And so if we check out the official Android developer guide, we can see that we have a page here that basically shows you a lot of information about how to support multiple screens. And so if we go through this, it'll give you some terms such as screen size, density, orientation, resolution, and density independent pixels, which is DP. So this is something you're always going to come across when you're dealing with Android, is the DP unit. And basically it shows right here exactly what it's talking about. So the only thing you really need to understand is that the MDPI, in all of these really, LDPI for low, medium, high, and then we have extra high, extra high, and extra high, is that basically if we're starting at the MDPI, we no longer have to worry about creating assets specifically for LDPI. But if we're starting at MDPI, this basically means 1 pixel. So 1 MDPI is 1 pixel. From here, we end up going higher and higher in terms of multiples. All the way when you get to XXX HDPI, this is 4 times the amount of the MDPI. All right. So what this basically means in the end is that we're going to start with this resolution when we're designing our mockups. That way, when we're ready to go ahead and export our assets for multiple screen sizes and densities, we only have to do some basic math, very simple, just to scale these down correctly. All right, so basically, I want you to open up the project files specifically for lesson 11 begin. And basically, we can go over here to project in Photoshop, and there it is. I had to paste that in there. And we're going to open up 11 begin. All right, just some quick font issues there. And basically what we have is kind of a template that you're free to use, and something I encourage you to use. And the only thing that makes this different, aside from just going to File, New, and specifying your document when you start your mockup, is just the fact that I have this top bar and this action bar at the bottom, and that just kind of quickly emulates the interface that's inherent with most apps. So you have your top bar here, your app here, and then down here these buttons. So basically the size of this document, and this is an artboard by the way. So this artboard tool, again, it's only here in CC 2015. If you have a previous version, you're not going to see the fact you'll be able to use the artboard. Just go to File, New, and set up your document that way. But we see if we switched over to the artboard tool, it does say 1440 by 2560, and this is an XXX HDPI resolution. And for instance, the Samsung Galaxy S6, which I have, is based on this resolution. Okay, so again, if you don't have the artboard tool, just go ahead, go to File, New. Specify those dimensions here for the width of 1440, then 2560 for the height, 72, and that's all good. RGB, and hit OK. All right, so basically for our first screen, again, this is going to be our first activity, we need to give it a background color. So if you recall, we were going to choose a background that it was kind of purple. Now would also be a good time to open up the asset that we created for our bucket drop logo and icon. So I'm going to open that up real quickly. And I have this 10 end here and also the app launcher. I'm just going to click on this. And when you open up an AI file, it'll give you this import PDF dialog first. And it shows you a quick preview, and also we can specify the resolution. Because this is a pretty big resolution, as you can see, I'm only at 25%. We definitely want a high resolution like this, but we'll see if this is big enough for this current size right there. We don't want this asset, but we do want this one over here. So I'm going to hit OK, and we'll see how big that is when we go to import it. So I'll just take this, right here, the rectangular marquee tool, just select this over here, Control C to copy it, and then we will paste right here. Now, basically, we have to ask ourselves, is this as big as we want it? It is kind of small. You could get away with using it, but I kind of do want it to be a little bit bigger. So what do? Do we hit Control T and scale it up like this? Well, no, you don't want to do that, because if you go to 100%, it's a little bit blurred. You never want to scale up a rastered asset like this. So we're going to delete that, and we're going to come back over here if I open. And I'm glad that this happened so I can show you what you do if the asset is not big enough when you import a vector file. So the resolution, all we have to do is up this number. Say, for instance, to 500. We'll hit OK. We'll copy it, Control C. And by the way, we can close these out. And now when I paste this, it is much bigger, and now it's 100% crisp as well. All right, so we'll move this up over here, because remember, we have two primary assets here. We're going to have the logo right here, and then add a drop button. Very simple, and it'll work well. All right, so I think I may want to make it a little bit smaller. So we'll hit Control T. I'm going to hit Shift and Alt and just left click and drag in, and then hit Apply. All right. And we're not going to leave this white and this black. We're actually going to change the colors drastically on this. First, we're going to focus on the background. So the background layer here, if I double click, we can see is not a shape layer. So we can give it a background in two different ways. We can use the paint bucket tool over here, or we can just use color overlay right here. So color overlay, and we'll click on it. And I'm going to use a specific color code. And so that color code, we can click on this right here and change it to 34186D. We'll hit OK and then hit OK. All right, so this obviously is not a lot of contrast, because this is kind of a darker bluish purple, and this here is black. Not good contrast. We want this to stick out quite a bit. And so the maximum amount of contrast that we could have between these is by changing this to a white. So if I just select it real quickly, and this is currently layer 1, we can double click and change that to logo. We could change the color simply by double clicking and change the color overlay. We can make it white like that and hit OK. And there we go. But I think I might want to give this a little bit more style and flair by changing to a different color in a gradient sense. So what I'll do is from color overlay, we can go ahead and take this and hide it and turn on gradient overlay. And we're going to angle it roughly 126 or something that's basically an angled sort of direction. And we'll click on gradient. And we'll experiment with different colors to make this look interesting. All right, so for the first color stopper, I'm going to go ahead and choose just this color over here, and then maybe come down and maybe even into the greens a little bit, right around there. So I'm using 05E8B0, hit OK. And maybe for this one, we'll try and grab this color over here once again, and maybe even get into the purple. Right around there. We'll hit OK, OK, and OK. So now if I hit, if I scroll out, this is what we're left with. All right, so in the next lesson, we're going to continue on adding a little bit of a gradient or textured appearance to the background, and also the add a drop button. And then we'll finish up this mock-up for the first activity. All right, so I'll see you then.